So, welcome to today's webinar, and it's a session on breaking bad habits. It's certainly here to give you the tools. So this is an empowerment session, an educational session to really impart the knowledge that I've gained through my clinical experience and what's worked with my clients. So there's nothing I'm holding back here. It's going to be all revealed, and I'm going to share what it takes to really change habits, and particularly deeply entrenched habits. So what we're going to be, discussing is those habits that are really just hardwired within you and you've struggled with for many years to break. And so this is about how do we rewire the brain so that you can get on with the habits that are going to better serve you and let go of the older habit. Now, just a bit of background around habits and habit creation and breaking old habits and breaking addictions is that obviously at some point it served a purpose, and it's acknowledging that at some point it serves some benefit. It's helped you in some way. Otherwise you wouldn't have enacted it. You wouldn't have done it. But over time, what's happened with that habit is that you've realized it's got some downside, and the downsides are becoming a bit more overwhelming, and you're starting to think, well, it's no longer serving me, and it no longer serves in terms of what's important to me, so therefore I'm going to move on from that habit. So don't judge yourself based on the habit that you're trying to move on from. It has served a purpose, and it's just no longer serving that purpose. There's more disadvantages over advantages to doing that old habit. And so what we're wanting to do in this masterclass is helping you move from that old habit into the habits that are better serving you, and in terms of what you value and in terms of what's important to you. So it's, in essence, a transformation. Okay? Because at the end of the day, we're always going to have some form of something that is quite attractive to us that you could classify as an addiction. And that could become in many forms. It could be in a relationship. You might be in a relationship and you just want to spend all your time with your intimate partner. You just don't want to be away from them, right? You're just so into it. It's such a high value to you. And from an observer point of view, people could observe you as saying that you're quite addicted to that person, right? Or it could be some new toy that you've got, whether it be a car or some new sport or something like that, and you're really into it and you just want to do it all the time and you're so attractive to it. And so these are things that are really important to us, and that's hence why we want to do more of it. And so what happens, habits and breaking habits and moving essentially from one addiction to another, is that we're just evolving and we're transforming. So nothing's gained or lost. It's just a transformation. So if you have a habit, like someone said at the start, a habit of procrastination, right? And they want to break the habit of procrastination. Procrastination's always going to be there. We will throughout, no matter what happens throughout your lifetime, procrastination will be there. It's not disappearing. It doesn't disappear. We don't lose it, right? In essence, what happens with it is that we learn to better manage it. So for example, with procrastination, we procrastinate on the things that are low value to us, that are not important to us. So anything for example, if something's not important to me, it goes to the bottom of my list and I won't do it. Essentially won't do it because it's not important to me. But if something comes in that's really important to me, I'll do it straight away. So someone shared at the start of this webinar that they want to break this habit of procrastination. Well, I can let you know and assure you now that you're always going to have procrastination with you, and you will always procrastinate in the areas that are low value to you, that are low importance. But you'll never procrastinate in the areas of high importance and of high value to you. So if you live a life and only do the things that are truly most important to you, you won't find yourself procrastinating. But the minute you focus on something that's not important to you, you will struggle to get through that. You will struggle to get the focus because you don't want to do it. It's not you, okay? So the key around procrastination to better manage it is to only allow things into your life that are important to you, that you value, and let go of everything else. Say no to everything else. And this is really important as an overall concept around changing habits, around creating new ones, is that the new habit that you're going to or what you want to create has to be of high importance to you. If it's not, then you won't do it. And then you'll think that you're a failure, but you're not. You're not a failure. You're just focusing on areas that are not important to you, but maybe someone's telling you that you should do it. You ought to do that. They're injecting or projecting their values onto you, not respecting who you are. So part of this is understanding who you are and what's most important to you, and by live a life by what's most important to you. And the way we do that is we define what's most important to us by saying no to the things of low value, of low priority. And that way you won't procrastinate because you've told people, I don't do that. That's not me. I delegate that. Or I just don't do it. But don't come to me and ask me to do that because I don't value it. It's not important to me. And so you start to let people know who you are, truly who you are, the authentic you. And when you do that, they get to know who you are, and they can truly love and respect who you are because you've defined you. One of the most important concepts you'll get out of today's webinar is living a life aligned to what's truly important to you. It doesn't matter what the outside world thinks. It doesn't matter about their opinion. Everyone's got an opinion. Opinions are the cheapest commodities on this earth, as you're probably aware, right? So it doesn't matter what people think. It's what's truly aligned to you, your inner compass, and just live a life aligned to what's most important to you. And you'll start to define yourself, and people will start to respect, and they can now love you for who you are because they know who you are, as opposed to putting on masks and people pleasing. So people pleasing, when you people please, you will procrastinate, I'm telling you. Okay, so for those that have just joined, I just did a big segment on procrastination and why I will always have procrastination and how we can better manage procrastination. So that was it. Someone asked that at the start, and I've sort of addressed that at this point, but I'll continue to address it throughout the masterclass. So for those that have just joined, if you want to interact with me, please put questions into the chat, or you can unmute yourself. We've got a nice small group here. And just good day, g'day, Nicole. Thank you for addressing the group. Thank you for your presence. So let's get on with the show. I just did a little prelude. So who am I? Why should you listen to me? So my background's very diverse. I started as a chemical engineer and I worked in corporate. So I know what it's like to have a corporate job and what it's like to work for a company and an organization. I did that for 15, 16 years. Excuse me. And however, I realized that the career that I was doing was unfulfilling and that there was something I perceived as missing, but it was me just not expressing entirely who I was. And for me, who I was someone that loved health and loved sharing health with others. And so I went back to school and I studied another 2 more degrees. I did a bachelor in health science, majoring in nutrition and dietetic medicine. And then I did another degree in Bachelor of Complementary Medicine. But that wasn't enough. I went to the DeMartini Institute and learned about human behavior. So I studied human behavior at the Dean Martini Institute. And a lot of what I'm sharing with you today is probably a combination of all these qualifications I have, as well as my clinical experience. So I'm a practicing clinician where I help people achieve their health goals using food and lifestyle medicine and helping them with their mindset. So I very much do a lot around human behavior and mindset to help my clients. That's just a little bit about me, and the reason why I do the Breaking Bad Habits Masterclass is I've had great success with my clients in breaking their habits with the tools that I'm about to share with you. And I'm going to share a case study of a client. It's just a short video of a client that had a really hard addiction that through this process that I'm about to share with you was able to break that and become the best version of themselves. So in terms of the roadmap, for those that like to know where this masterclass is going, what we're going to do is start delving into your why. Why do you want to change? Why is it important to you? Because the more we bring that to your conscious awareness, the more likely you're going to be intrinsically motivated to change. Okay, you won't need any reward. You won't need $1 million reward. You won't need people to cheer you on. I mean, it does help, but you won't be reliant on that. You'll be intrinsically motivated from within to apply and to change what you want to change. We're going to hear Dave's journey. So Dave's the client I was talking about, and he shares his story about him applying these tools that you're about to learn and the profound difference it's made on his life. I'm going to then go into what's happening in your brain so that you better understand how your brain works and how to better govern your brain as opposed to feeling that you're out of control. So sometimes we feel that we don't have control and we're out of control and our thinking's just spiraling out of control. So I'm going to let you know how your brain works so that you can better feel, in a sense, that you're in control and have the tools to get yourself back under control. And then after that, I'm going to go through the process of how to rewire your brain. So you're going to learn this neurological rewiring and how it works within your brain and how to apply it. And then the next steps of what you need to do in terms of getting the outcome that you're seeking. Obviously, everyone's come here with a goal in mind. And what I'm going to share is the tools that will help you, and then you have had them and then can apply them. I've just got a few people entering. So those that have just joined or rejoined, welcome. We've just started the webinar and we're just going through the agenda. So you haven't really missed much, except my prelude at the start, my discussion around procrastination. For those that have just joined, please interact, either unmute yourself or build a nice small cohort or interact with me via the chat. And if you unmute yourself, obviously you'll be recorded. If you enter comments in the chat, I don't need to read out your name. I'm just going to say hello to those that have just put comments in the chat. Good to have you join us today. Thank you for participating. So, what's your why? Why have you come here today? Why is it important for you to change? I want you to reflect on this. I actually want you to get a bit of paper out, or if you like typing, I want you to actually start workshopping this. I want you to start getting results. Because what is happening is that there's an inclination that you're consciously aware of, you become self-conscious of, that you're thinking, yeah, I want to change something. But what we need to do is bring to your conscious awareness all the unconscious motives as to why you want to change. And this is that process. It is getting you to bring to your conscious awareness what's there in your unconscious mind. Okay, so I want you to go through each of these questions and write your reasons. Write your reasons of why it's important that you want to change. So, for example, what is it costing you in a financial sense? So sometimes our habits, such as like consuming alcohol or taking drugs, can have a big cost on us financially. So I've had a client that was consuming like a $10 bottle of wine every day, and sometimes 2 bottles. So that would be up to $20, a day. And so if you then multiply that, even if we just take the $10 example, you multiply that by 365, that's $3,650 it's costing them per annum. And this client had been doing it for 20 years. 20 years. So as you can then times 20 by 3 or 20 by 4, it's closer to 4. That's about an $80,000 cost. You think what you could do with $80,000 plus a bit of inflation. So in real terms, it's probably about $100,000 that habit has cost them. But it goes beyond financial. Obviously, it's had a big impact on his relationships. He's lost his intimate partner. He's lost contact with his family. He's lost contact with his friends. And so beyond financially, beyond the $100,000, it's had a massive impact on his relationships. So I just want you to keep writing these reasons why it's important for you to change. Why do you want to change? Connect deeply within you. Bring to your conscious awareness what's unconscious. I had another client, Dave, actually, who's going to share his story in the next slide. Dave was taking cocaine every weekend, right? And that addiction was costing anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 a week. And you think about $1,000 to $2,000 a week, and then you multiply that over 3 years, then that becomes a very expensive, like that's in order of, even if you take the lower side, the 1,000 side, that is about $150,000. Plus a bit of inflation, probably $175,000. That's a pretty good deposit on a house. It can buy a lot of things. It can buy a really good car if you want a car. And so it had a big impact financially in terms of relationships. The drugs are having a massive impact in terms of relationships with family. Dave had a strong value on his family. He really valued his family and the connection with family, and he was losing it because of drugs. How is it affecting you socially? So what is the social implications that, as a result of your habits? How is it affecting your career? So how is it affecting your ability to be productive? How is it stopping you fulfilling your dreams in terms of your life's purpose? Your spiritual quest, how is it impacting that? How does it hold you back mentally? Like you can think, my client that was drinking the 1 to 2 bottles of wine a night, you can imagine how he was waking up the next day. Would have been very foggy, low energy, and really struggled to get through the day. And you can imagine, like when you're hungover, what it's like. You're more irritable. You're more frustrated. You don't have this great EQ, for example. Your emotional intelligence is just not there because you're so irritable and frustrated, and you burst out into anger more easily. And so it really has an impact on how you interact with the world. What impact is it having on your health, your habit? What impact does it have on your health? So I've given you a good amount of time to really start writing these down. Now, what I'd like you to get to, obviously I don't have the time to allow you to do this in this space, but I'd like you to keep working on this. And I want you to keep writing reasons to the point that it brings a tear, until you have a cathartic moment where it's actually a tear of gratitude. It's a tear of joy. You've actually really connected strongly with the reason why you want to change. And so for example, I know someone that's wanted to connect with the work they were doing. They wrote down 43 reasons as to why the work they were doing was so fulfilling to them, why it was so important to them. And when they got to the third reason, they had this cathartic moment. But at that moment, they were so strongly connected to their work, they've been unstoppable. So if you want to break procrastination and want unstoppable momentum, keep writing down the why it's important, your reason for change, until you cry. Find that why until you cry. You will be unstoppable because you've revealed why it's so important to you. And you've had that revelation and it's in your conscious awareness. And you will be absolutely unstoppable. I want you to complete this exercise in your own time. We don't have time today well, I certainly don't have time to allow you to complete the exercise. So there's been a question asked, is there a certificate after this seminar? Well, I've never been asked that question, but I'm actually more than happy to provide you with one. So everyone that wants a certificate, if you could just leave your email address in the chat, you can either put it directly to me if you don't want everyone seeing your email address, or you can just put it in the chat. But you put it in the chat, I'll have a record and I'll make sure that you get a certificate following this masterclass. So yeah, absolutely, I can do that. So I just wanted to share Dave's story because the reason why I want to share Dave's story is to give you hope and to realize, yes, you can do it. Yes, it is possible. And that these tools work if you apply them. So I'm just going to share Dave's, it's just a short video. This is Dave's story in sharing his journey in the application of these tools.
Realize that I can use my past and be thankful for what my experiences have taught me. He told me that my demons were not in fact bringing me down, but making me stronger for what was to come. Anthony was honest from the start and told me this was going to be a long, hard journey. But persistence was the key, and with his tools and advice, I begun my journey. It has been a year since I have been with Anthony, and I have never felt this good in my whole life. I thought I would get. I was using drugs every day and constantly. It is a big transition, but if you are willing to put it tough out there, I know it's even tougher to get help because you don't want to accept the fact that getting help is the bravest thing. To all the people, please reach out to Anthony if you are struggling. He will change your life.
So the reason why I said that is purely just to give you hope that, yes, there are tools that you can apply, and what I'm about to share with you has given many clients great results, and you can get the same. You can get the same results by applying. So you could not hear the volume. Well, I apologize. So hopefully you could just read the transcripts. I did share with sounds. It might just be your volume, actually, because I did share it with sound. I could certainly hear it. So maybe it was the volume. I don't know. I'm not sure. Anyway, some technical issue. But I'm hoping, well, I can also share the video when I share the recording, if you'd like. Okay, so I just wanted to, I want to give you some background as to how your brain works. The reason why this is important is I want you to understand that because sometimes you think there's something wrong with you, right? And this also comes like when people talk about, oh, you're so negative, you constantly focus, you're so pessimistic, you focus on the negative, and then people think, oh, there's something wrong with me. But in actual fact, what I'm about to share with you is that we're all wired to think more negatively than positively. Okay. And that's normal. So I don't want you to ever think that what's happening in your brain is not normal. It's pretty much shared amongst all of it. What I'm wanting to make sure that you walk away with is an understanding of how your brain works and how you can better run your brain. Okay. So how can you arm yourself with the understanding and the tools to have better control of the way you perceive things, in essence? Because ultimately it comes down to our perceptions of what we witness, of what we see. And those perceptions are filtered based on our upbringing, based on our education, based on parents, based on anyone that's had an influence on our lives. And we filter the world through this thalamus, right? So in actual fact, what we then integrate into our brain is a distorted view of reality, right? Because it's gone through a filter. So what I want to help you with is that to understand that how you see the world is based on all those influencing factors that I just mentioned. And that's why you see the world differently to someone else, because they've had a different upbringing, they've had different teachers, they've had different parents and different religious values, all those sort of things help shape the way in which we see the world. What we can do is ask better questions and start breaking down that filter so that we see the world as it is, not via the filtered lens. And that's through a questioning process. And what I'm about to share with you, some of those questions to ask yourself so that you can start breaking down that filtered lens and see it as opposed to through a filter, which is through judgment. We then judge it based on our previous experiences and the influences that have been influential on our lives. So let me explain the different parts of your brain so that you can understand why you do what you do and why sometimes your emotions are running your life and you're feeling out of control. But we do have governance over our emotions. Let me just explain the two parts of the brain. Well, there's more than two parts of the brain. These are the two parts that I'm going to focus on in this masterclass. So you've probably heard the animal brain. Okay, it's about the mid area of our brain, about the middle. If you go from your ears and go inwards, it's about that sort of point in our brain. Our animal part of the brain is also known as the desire center. So our desire in terms of what we desire, and also known as our limbic center, which is also known as the emotional center, right? So that's our animal part of the brain. And that's around our midbrain. And then we have this forebrain, which is evolved, right? It's evolved over time, over the centuries, over the millennials. And this evolved part of the brain is what distinguishes us from the rest of the animal kingdom. So what we have common to the rest of the animal kingdom is the animal brain. But we have this evolved part of the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex is where we have self-governance. It's where we have vision of we have a strategic vision of what we want to accomplish in life. It's where we can strategically plan. We can weigh up the pros and cons and see both sides and then choose the best path and then put in mitigating factors for the things that might happen. It's where we have control over our life. It's where we have control over our emotions. It's where love and gratitude reside. Love and gratitude reside in the prefrontal cortex. Infatuation, when we're infatuated over someone or something, that is in our animal brain. That's in our desire center. But unconditional love resides in our prefrontal cortex. Gratitude, ultimate gratitude, where we can be grateful for everything in our life, is in our prefrontal cortex. Because in our prefrontal cortex, we see both sides. It's unfiltered. We see it as it is. We don't see it through this filtered lens. So this is very empowering because we actually seeing what's actually its actuality. We haven't got this distorted reality. Our distorted reality occurs when it goes through our lens, our filter of judgments. And that's when we're in our animal brain. And that's where our emotions are. That's where we get emotional. Now, let me explain how the animal brain works. So the animal brain is simple. It seeks prey, which is what you desire. So in this case, it could be seeking sugar. It could be seeking a partner. It could be seeking some sort of something that you desire. It gives us desire to seek what we want or what we think we want. And sometimes you don't actually want it, but we still seek it. And then there's the other side, which is to avoid predator. So the animal brain's simple. It's seek prey, avoid predator. And that could be avoid pain, seek pleasure. You've probably heard of that. I avoid the pain. I run away from people I don't want to be around. I run away from people I don't like. And I run towards the things that I like, such as it could be whatever you're, got a hardcore addiction to. In Dave's case, it was drugs. He would run towards drugs and run away and avoid the pain in his life or the things that cause discomfort. And so this is the animal brain. And what happens with that animal brain is all these emotions. So we get emotions of elation when we get what we desire, such as our sugar hit, or we have the alcohol, or we want the sex, or whatever. We gamble and win money. We get that high. We get that elation, right? So that's the emotion. And then we like that high. We like that elation. And so therefore we want more of that. And hence we go back to the sugar. We go back to the sex. We go back to the gambling. We may go back to the smoking because it gives us the high, it gives us the elation. We may go back to some drug or whatever. Now, in terms of the other side, the avoiding pain, we obviously want to, some people avoid it. They run away from it. Some people fight it. So there's a fighting behavior too. So some people will get aggressive and argue and resort to violence or whatever, but it's all part of this animal brain, right? So whenever there's violence in the community or in society, it's people stuck in their animal brains. That strong emotion is creating the behavior that you think rationally about, and you think, how could you do that? Well, at the time, when we're in our animal brain, people don't think rationally. Rational thinking is in our prefrontal cortex. Irrational emotional thinking is in our animal brain. So when you don't quite understand people's behavior, it's because they're stuck in that animal brain and you're sitting there looking at the situation from your prefrontal cortex and you're thinking rationally, but at the time when they did the behavior, they were irrational. They were emotion. So in our animal brain, our emotions will run us. So, for example, avoiding pain, we'll get angry, frustrated, irritable. They're those emotions because we want to get away from the thing we don't like. And then we'll seek the things that we want, we desire, and we love that elation, that high feeling. And so we just go from one pole to another pole. We're just swinging between polarities. Swinging between running away from this, running towards that. So, for example, someone may frustrate you or irritate you. And so what do? Avoid that person and go and get a chocolate bar to make you feel better. And so you're just going from one pole to another pole. And your emotions are running your behavior like a pendulum. However, when we're in our prefrontal cortex, we see both sides of the person. We can see, yes, they have this side that is quite attractive, but then they've got this side that's not quite attractive. But that's who they are. But in our prefrontal cortex, we don't judge. However, in our animal brain, we will form judgment. We will either focus on the side that we don't like about the person, and we're judging and we're just saying that person's a rat bag, or we'll get infatuated with them and we'll focus on the side that we love, we admire, and we'll just think, oh, that person is heaven. That person is so irresistible. But in actual fact, the more you get to know that person, you start to see the other side. But that other side was always there It was just that we were in our judgment part of our brain. And in our judgment part of the brain, we just focus on one side of the person or one side of the event. So I'm talking, it could be an event such as COVID, for example. People either focus on the negative aspects of COVID, and therefore COVID was all bad, or some people focus on the positive aspects and COVID was great. But it was based on your perception, right? But COVID was COVID, and COVID was balanced. It had good points and it had bad points. But if you're in your prefrontal cortex, you wouldn't have judged COVID. You would have just said COVID was COVID. I like this about it. I didn't like this about it. But you saw COVID as it was or as it is without judgment. So ultimately, you'll have control over your brain when you are in your prefrontal cortex. And you'll know when you're in your prefrontal cortex because you're present. You're entirely present. You're mindful. You're not mindless. When we're in our animal brain, we're mindless. We're judging. We only see one side. We don't see both sides. So therefore, we're not completely mindful. When we're in our prefrontal cortex, we see the whole picture. We see both sides of the person. We see both sides of the event, and we see it as it is without judgments because we're entirely present. When you're in your prefrontal cortex, you'll feel very centered, very poised. You won't feel like this automaton bouncing between emotions, that you're high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low. You'll be very centered. You'll be very grounded in your prefrontal cortex. So in terms of how you get there, well, ultimately, if you want to reside primarily in your prefrontal cortex, yes, you'll slip into animal mode when your life's threatened. Of course, we all do that. If a car's about to come to me, I'm not going to stay in this Zen mode and think everything's okay. I am zen and centered. This car is just going to fly over the top of me and not hit me. That doesn't happen. I go into animal mode and I jump out of the way of the car, right? Because that's how humans work. But I'm just creating this awareness to understand why you think the way you do and how you can change it. Now, when we are in our animal brain, we think like in terms of the habit that we're doing, initially we think it's all good. We're not aware, we're unconscious of the downsides of that habit. But over time, we start to see the downsides of that habit. However, the downsides were always there if we looked at the habit objectively from the prefrontal cortex without the subjective lens. So the subjective lens happens in our animal brain where we're judging something and thinking that is just all good. There's nothing bad about it. Well, that's animal thinking because it's black and white. Everything has an opposing opposite. And we only know that when we're in our prefrontal cortex. So, for example, there's never pain without pleasure. They're inseparable. But when we're in our animal brain, we have this fantasy thinking that we can have pleasure without pain, and that's what we desire. We have a fantasy towards that. And our nightmare, therefore, is pain without pleasure. And so that's the animal. The animal brain is run by fantasies and nightmares. The nightmares, the tiger, the fantasies, the infatuation, your knight in shining armor, that infatuation where you have this fantasy of thinking that it's just all good. But in actual fact, in reality, everything's intertangled. There's always pain and pleasure. Those complementary opposites are always there. It's how we perceive it distorts the reality. So if we note that everything has pain and pleasure and it's all entangled, then we're actually seeing things as it is because we're seeing both sides. We're seeing the positives and we're seeing the negatives at the same time. If we judge, we split it. We split our conscious awareness so that we're conscious of the, but we're unconscious of the downsides. And that's when we think it's all good. And that's when we have this fantasy that we create in our animal minds. So that's just some background as to what's happening in your mind and how you can get better control over your mind. And the way in which, as I said at the start, the way in which you can break down that filter is ask better questions and bring to your conscious awareness what you're unconscious of because of the judgment. And so it's just a simple questioning process is what I'm about to teach you. And through that questioning process, you can get into your prefrontal cortex and you can see both sides. You can see things objectively as opposed to a subjective bias. And that's really important that we see things as they are, as opposed to judging them. And then when we have the judgment, we have all the emotions entangled with that judgment. This process will help you take control of your mind. I just have to do a time check, and I've just realized that I've done a lot of talking and haven't really advanced the slides much. So I've just shared this slide here. So again, I can share the slides with you, but I'm not going to go through this slide because I've actually spoken to it on the previous slide. Now, in terms of what we want to understand around our human behavior and why we do what we do is we want to bring to our conscious awareness what triggers us to do that undesirable behavior. Because we want to be consciously aware of the triggers. Because when we're aware of what's triggering us to revert to that old behavior, then we can do something about being able to better control the situation so we don't get triggered. Or what we ultimately want to do is dissolve that trigger. So that trigger, because the trigger is something we're judging and with something we either, in most cases, we don't like, so therefore we go to the behavior that brings us elation or brings us a high. What we can do is dissolve that trigger, but first of all, we need to know what those triggers are. So is that trigger someone in your life that you don't like, that you resent? Does it, seeing them bring up all these emotions, and in order to get rid of those emotions, you go towards that behavior that is giving you some relief. Okay, so what we can is we can dissolve that trigger so that you're no longer judging that person. So therefore, you don't have this emotion that drives you to the old behavior. So that's a process of which I can help you through. I don't have enough time. I wish I did. I should have set a few more hours for this masterclass, but I know that most people are going to have to leave at the hour. So I'm going to get through the content. I'm just going to have to give a more concise summary of the content. Now, in order to stop procrastination, which is that earlier discussion we had at the very start of the webinar, I want you to answer these questions, because by answering these questions, it will reveal to you what's most important to you. And as I said at the start, if you focus on what's most important to you, then you won't procrastinate, because what's most important to you brings you total fulfillment, and you don't perceive anything missing. It's when we perceive something missing and that we need to fill that gap is that we then look for something that's going to fill that gap, and that's distraction. We look for something that it could be scrolling through TikTok, looking for something entertaining because you're wanting to fulfill a gap that you've perceived within. But that gap's only there because you're not doing something that's truly important to you. So like, for example, when I'm doing this, I lose track of time. Hence why I just had to look at the time, because I thought I'd been talking for quite some time and I needed to check the time so that I can finish the webinar on time. But I was in my zone, as you can probably see, and nothing is really distracting to me other than value and respect your time. So answer these questions. What energizes you? What is it that you do that brings you energy? So this could be, for example, What energizes me is when I'm doing these masterclasses, hence why I do them regularly. What also energizes me is spending time with my family, being present with them, interacting with them. What else energizes me? When I'm out doing something for my health and well-being. Those things really energize me. And so they're things that I really value. I have a high value on them. So what brings you energy? The next question I want you to answer is, what brings you presence? When are you totally present? It's like me. I'm totally present now and nothing's distracting me other than a few chat comments, but I'm okay with chat comment distractions because that's me helping you. And that's what I'm doing this for, is to help you. What brings you focus? When are you truly focused? So what are you doing when you're not procrastinating? So what is it that you do where you don't procrastinate? So I remember the question at the start. I want you, without saying your name, because I'm recording, I want you to think about the things that you do where you're not looking for distractions, where you don't procrastinate. They're things that are truly important to you. What are the things you love to talk about? So when do you become extroverted? So if someone asks me about human behavior, I can rant and rave for hours, as you can probably see. So I'm extroverted when it comes to talking about the mind and human behavior. I'm introverted when it comes to talking about cars, because cars I'm not interested in. So when are you extroverted? What do you love talking about? What do you love to learn about? Write down 3 things that you love to learn about. Where do you set long-term goals that you can see evidence of progress? Because they're areas that are important to you. They're not New Year's resolutions. The New Year's resolutions are often other people's goals that we think we want, and they're not important to us, so we don't do anything about them. When you set goals in areas that are important to you, you will take action. You will make progress. So what are the areas that you set goals in that you're constantly making progress in? What are the things that you constantly make time for? Excuse me. What are the things that fill your space, that you allow into your intimate space? Excuse me, I've been talking a lot. I haven't been breathing properly. So what are the things that you allow into that intimate space? So it's sort of that arm's length. What's within an arm's length of you most of the time? So what's in that intimate space? What do you make time for? Where are you most disciplined? So what areas of your life are you most disciplined? Because areas that you're very disciplined are areas that are important to you. Again, where are you most organized? So where you turn up to things on time? Where do you never miss an appointment? So, for example, if you never miss a hair appointment or you never miss a facial, then your physical appearance is important to you. Where do you, like that internal vision, so there's like an internal vision that you constantly have in your mind that you are thinking about, but then you see some evidence of that coming true in reality. So what are the things that you internally visualize that you can see manifesting in reality? That's important to you. And then how do you spend your money? So what are the 3 things that you spend your money on beyond basic human needs? So beyond shelter, beyond food, and beyond water, what do you spend your money on? Because you'll spend your money on the things that you value. So what are the 3 priority areas you spend your money on that you'll always find money for? They're important to you. So what I want you to do with this list is start looking at what's most common across the list. And those things that are most common that keep popping up are the things that are most important to you. So I want you to have a top 3 list of the 3 most important things to you in your life based on these questions that you've answered. Now, in terms of the process of rewiring the brain, what is important is that you bring to your conscious awareness of the benefits the old behavior is giving you. So what are the benefits you get from the old behavior? It's important to bring that to your conscious awareness, because then we can start the rewiring process once it's in our conscious awareness. Because once we start to list all the benefits of the old behavior, we can then look for alternatives that better serve what we value. So what are the alternate behavior that is better linked, that is more strongly linked to what we value? And so I'm going to give an example on the next slide about how to work through these questions. And then once we have a list of alternate behaviors, what we want to do is then stack up the benefits of that alternate behavior and how it serves what we value most and how it serves us in all areas of life. We want to start stacking those. So what we're doing is we're starting to strengthen the neurological pathway to the alternate behavior, because we're linking it to what's most important to us. And when we do that, we link it to our prefrontal cortex. And our prefrontal cortex is where we have meaning and purpose. And then what we want to do is start dissolving, the hardwiring to the old behavior. And the way we start breaking down the hardwiring to the old behavior is that we start to list how the old behavior doesn't provide any benefit to what we value most. And so then we're stacking up the how and the disadvantages of the old behavior. And then we've got a strong connection to the new behavior because we've linked it to what we value most. And we can see that linkage. And what we want to do, answer each of these questions until we have that cathartic moment, until we have a shift of emotion. We feel a shift of emotion within our body. When we feel a shift of emotion, we're in our prefrontal cortex because we're seen as it is and we're seeing both sides. We're fully conscious when we have that cathartic moment. We're fully centered. We see both sides. We're no longer blinded to the downsides. We see how it's not serving us, and we see how it's not serving us in terms of what's most important to us. And so what we want to do is keep answering these questions to the point where you have that breakthrough and you feel the shift in your physiology and you feel, wow, I've got full realization. So let me just walk you through an example and we're finishing up. I'll finish up in the next 5 minutes. So, for example, let's take someone that drinks a bottle of wine every night. And this is one of my old clients. So what benefits? So obviously we did a lot more benefits, but just for this example, I've only listed 2 here. So the benefits, it made them relax having the wine, right? The other thing, they actually liked the taste of the wine. They enjoyed the taste of the wine. So what is the alternate behavior that this person could do that's better aligned to what they value? So this person wanted to improve their health. So what else relaxes them that also is better for their health? Well, what else? It was going outside for a walk, was going a walk in the park with their dog was relaxing to them. So I said, well, that's an alternate behavior to finding something that relaxes you, that is better aligned to your values. And so then we started linking the new behavior to how it better serves their values. So they have a high value on health. Well, when they're going for a walk, they're getting some exercise. They also had a value on financial freedom. Well, going for a walk is free. Doesn't cost them anything. It costs them a bit of time, but that's okay because they're doing something that benefits them in terms of their values. And that's how you want to spend your time. You want to spend all your time doing the things that you value most. What they also valued was education. They wanted to empower themselves in the areas that they valued. And so what they could also do whilst they're walking outside was listen to podcasts. And so therefore they're also So they're stacking up all these things that are important to them with the new behavior. And so they're starting to see all the new connections, and they're thinking, oh, wow, yeah, that's important to me. That's important to me. That's important to me. I can't wait to do this new behavior because it is associated with who I am. And the other thing, as you say, or as I said, they have a value on health. So being out in sunshine is beneficial for them because obviously sun is energizing. The sunshine lifts your spirits. We know that through research. And so we continue to list these benefits until brought that cathartic moment, and they had that release that they could feel, that they could see full realization of what they were about to embrace in terms of their new habit. Now, in terms of this, you've probably had a chance to read this. I'm not going to talk too much to this, other than what we need to do is find new ways of achieving the benefits of the old behavior. And then we want to stack up the benefits of the new behavior with what we value most. And you guys just recently did that exercise in terms of articulating what you value most and what's most important to you. So in terms of dissolving the old habit, well, then we want to stack up the disadvantages of the old habit. What we want to do is obviously show that how it's not serving them in terms of what they value most. As I've said, clients values their health. Well, alcohol results in poor sleep. This client also values relationships. When you had a poor sleep, you're more moody, and so relationships are impacted. In terms of health, there's increased calories consumed when drinking alcohol, and they obviously want to better manage their calories so that they can better control their weight. And so what we did was we continued to stack up all the disadvantages of doing the old behavior in terms of how it's not serving them in terms of what they value. So in terms of other areas that will really help you, so obviously I've shared the mindset and how to rewire your brain, but there's other areas that will impact why you do what you do, and that's environmental factors. And so we've got to make sure that we set up the environment so it better serves us. And non-native EMFs, which is from electronic devices, anything electronic will emit non-native EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. And what these non-native EMFs do is that they interfere with dopamine production. And so they actually deplete dopamine. And when our dopamine drops, we're looking for ways to prop it up. And this is why you might be, if you're stuck around or stuck inside on devices all day, this is why you may go to the either the cupboard, or you might go to the communal lolly jar, and you're constantly picking up sugar, because sugar helps pick up dopamine. Eating helps pick up dopamine. And so being aware that your environment can be driving some of this behavior is important. So if you can, for example, if you are stuck inside on computers, what you want to do is, if you feel your energy dropping, rather than grab the sugar, what you want to do is step outside and get some sunshine. And that will pick up the dopamine. That will pick up your energy, and you'll no longer desire the sugar. So also LEDs, for example. So LEDs are the fluorescent lights, the blue lights, white lights that we have in our houses these days. The so-called energy efficient lights, these also deplete dopamine. So reducing the amount of these lights that are on and increasing natural light into a room will really benefit you. As I said, don't do activities that are low priority to you. They'll deplete your dopamine. You'll feel unfulfilled, and you'll look for ways to top up your dopamine. So make sure you stick to priorities, stick to what's important to you. Again, a low protein diet can also impact our neurotransmitters. So for those that are vegan, you might want to focus on eating protein-rich vegan foods and prioritize that. That will be very important. And obviously, recreational drugs and pharmaceutical drugs will deplete natural production of neurotransmitters and hormones. So just being aware of that, just making it so you're conscious of it. Now, for those that are still with me, given though I've gone well past the hour, if you'd like further help in this area, I can certainly provide that help. For those that have attended the masterclass, I have this special offer. So if you would like one-on-one help and some coaching in order to get back on track, in order to live a life aligned to what's important to you, live a life with meaning and purpose, then I can certainly help you with that. So just reach out to me. Either email me or send me your number in the chat privately, and I will contact you and I can let you know how I work with clients one-on-one. And I'm going to stay for questions if you have time for them. So there is a question in the chat, and it's, how can one tell that she is doing undesirable behaviors? That's a really good question. It's based if the behavior's not aligned to your values. So ultimately, because they're not being yourself. So we're here on earth to be the best expression of who we are, right? So you're here to be the best version of you and to showcase that to the world, because that's how we add value. That's how we progress human consciousness, by being the best versions of ourselves. So if you feel unauthentic and you feel that you're cheating yourself, then that's a good indication that you're doing things that aren't aligned to your values. If you feel guilt, for example, then that guilt is you're doing something that doesn't resonate with who you are. Okay? And so the feelings of guilt, the feelings of shame, the feelings of not worthy, low self-esteem, lack of, like, you feel that you have no purpose, all those feelings will tell me that you're doing behaviors that aren't aligned to your values, and you're not living who you truly are, and you're not being the best expression of who you are. So I think that's the best way which I can answer that question. I hope that answered and addressed your question. I'm happy to answer any more questions if there is more questions. So there's a question around LED lights. Okay, so would that be both cool and warm, or just the cool ones? Absolutely. Yeah, so the ones that emit energy are emitting infrared light. And when we're outside, we get infrared light from the full sun spectrum. And our biological systems are linked to the sun and for getting full exposure to the sun's full spectrum sunlight. What our body doesn't want to see is narrowband light. So if lights are just emitting blue light, which gives great visual appearance, then that narrow band light has an impact on our health because it's not balanced. When we get full spectrum light, the full spectrum provides the balance that our body needs. And so if a light's emitting some warmth as well as visible, so we can see things, then it's much better than the cool ones. So incandescent light bulbs are far better than LEDs. So incandescent light bulbs better resemble outside light, and that better aligns to us, to our physiological needs. So incandescent light bulbs, really good. LEDs, not good. Over time, what's going to happen is LEDs are going to become full spectrum. That's where the life engineers are taking LED lights, but at the moment, they're narrow band spectrum, and they're dangerous to our health. And they're making us eat more sugar, and they're making us feel more depleted, and they're affecting our mental health. They're affecting our blood sugar regulation. They're having a big impact on us. Obesity. There's direct links between LED lights and obesity. So they're having great effects on our physiology. Is there any more questions? Happy to answer them. Are you welcome? Thank you for expressing your appreciation. So there's a question about, will there be more webinars in the future? Absolutely. So I will share, I'll keep you updated with up and coming webinars. Would love you to attend. Appreciate everyone's attendance today and everyone's participation. Thank you for putting your health first and valuing you. This is really important. The fact that you've put aside time to invest in you is really important. And I want to thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing something for yourself. Everyone is very welcome. Thank you for the accolades that you're sharing in the gratitude you're sharing in the chat. I appreciate that. Thank you.